All right, good evening. Today is Thursday, October 25th. I'd like to call the Board of Health meeting to order. And to review the agenda, add and remove any items. Do we have anything to add or remove?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And approval of any minutes that we have?
Nope.
Nope.
We do not.
Excellent. And agenda items, we're going to open with a hearing. First hearing is going to be for the septic request for a two-family dwelling at 15 Sunrise Ave at Auburn. I'd entertain a motion to open the hearing.
So moved. Motion?
And is there a second? Second. And all those in favor of opening the hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the hearing is now open.
Thank you. This, in your packets, you have a letter from Burton Engineering, and it's on behalf of the property owner, Mr. Ray Bonneville, who is present. And this is in regards to 15 Sunrise Ave. The letter, a short letter, Dear Board of Health, this letter is summarizing that the septic system that was installed at 15 Sunrise Ave in Auburn was designed for a 4-bedroom house and per the Auburn requirements size for 5 bedrooms. So as you know, we do have a design plus one. The original intent was for a single-family home. However, due to family circumstances, the owner would like to build a 2-family house, and each portion of the house supporting 2 bedrooms for a total of 4 bedrooms. The installed system can support the total of 4 bedrooms. Thank you, Frank Pacheri, PE. So this letter we received. I have had a chance to speak with the property owner regarding this property. And as of right now, this property does not have a house. It does have a foundation, and it does have a well and a septic system installed. Earlier this year, I worked with the owner to get the installation complete to sign off. And this property had been over past several years before I was here, had been in some state of being installed, but was never completely signed off. So I worked with Mr. Bonneville to get it to the stage where it is ready to be signed off. So a certificate of compliance can be issued for the septic portion of it. However, just as we were getting ready to issue that, Mr. Bonneville had come in with this request. So the system that is installed at the property is for 4 bedrooms. And per the Auburn regulation, we require design plus one. So it actually can handle 550 gallons per day. The Town of Auburn septic regulations do not allow a system to support 2 dwelling units without special approval from the board. That's one of the requirements from the regulation from when it was approved back in 2005. So section 5.7, it shall be a violation of the Town of Auburn Board of Health Code of Regulations for any person to install a system serving 2 or more separate dwelling units shall not be allowed in the Town of Auburn except by special permission. So that's the reason for coming to the board for this request. While I wasn't here when these regulations were put into effect, I think the intent is that the systems can support what is going to be built. And in this case, we have one foundation, I believe. I would have to double check with the owner, but the foundation is going to encompass the 2 dwelling units. Is that correct, Mr. Bonneville?
Yes, yes.
So the with having one septic system and one well, the concerns that that I would have would be, can the flow handle it? The engineer from Burton Engineering is stating that it can handle it. There wouldn't be more than 4 bedrooms, and it can handle flow up to 5. And then also, I haven't had this conversation with the owner, but I believe the intent is to keep the property under one owner. so they wouldn't be sold separately, similar to like condo units. The concern would be if it's under one owner, and then there's a problem with the septic system or the well producing enough, one owner would be able to address those concerns.
Okay.
So that would be the recommendation, to just confirm that it is going to remain under one ownership, one single owner. And if the board does entertain accepting this, maybe we put it as a condition. If the owner ever decides to separate them and put them as separate condos, that they'd have to come back to the board.
Any questions from the board?
Square footage of living area, is it the same despite the fact that now it's 2 dwelling units?
I don't have any plans for the proposed dwelling at this time.
With the original septic design that was approved and installed, was there any definition of living area or number of rooms in the house?
We don't typically get the square footage for the house. Let me just double check.
But it's the original
But we have the-
foundation that was...
We have the size of the
Yeah.
house. I'm sorry, I don't have a scale on me. Perhaps the owner?
It's 30 by 50,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, the square footage would remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
It has a 4-foot knee wall, and as you walk in, there's stairs going down,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would be stairs going up, because it would be a split level, and then the bedrooms would be up there.
Okay.
So it's not changing the size, and to build it, I don't have the information from my engineer and also the building inspector. There has to be a firewall in between the two. So that would make it a 2-family automatic.
So-
It has to be that way. So I would like to come to this board stating that since my daughter has one and my son has one, if they can't stand to be living together, then it would be best to have one sell it, move out. The area of the of the land is more adequate enough for both sides. You know what I mean? They can both have, pretty much almost 0.75 acres on both sides. So it does carry a good amount of land. Like Darlene said, as far as the septic system is concerned, it's an overkill. And then the water well, right now, is producing 10 gallons a minute, which is only required for 5 gallons a minute. To produce that, it was just to go up on horsepower of the motor. That was it. But getting back to the square footage, it won't change anything. The square footage is still the same.
How many rooms in each dwelling?
So
How many total rooms in each dwelling?
there's a kitchen, a living room, a combined kitchen and dining room, living room, bathroom, bedroom, bathroom. The downstairs,
Pretty open
as-
plan.
It's just a open family room.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Can I just, he's asking if it be condos. That's what he's asking.
I'm sorry, was it?
Just for clarification, Ray, are you planning on making these condos?
Yes, they would have to be.
So each,
The way
He's not asking
Caleb
for a
and
two-family.
the engineer had explained it to me, is that the 2-family have to have a firewall in between the two. And if that is the case, then make them so that if somebody's going to, let's say my son moves out, he just moves out, who's gonna occupy that? And if they do, will they be able to take ownership of it? So I might as well kill two birds with one stone, just leave it as the firewall being there and let them choose to do what they want to do with it.
So each of your children will have title to their half?
That, exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a bit different than what...
The concerns from the...
Yeah, so the concern would be, as soon as you, anytime you have one system, one well, and you're going to have two separate owners, that becomes the concern, I think, of why this was actually put into the regulation. The board has to allow
Shared.
approval of this for anything that is going to be shared between two separate owners only by permission. So the way that I understood it from Mr. Bonneville was that this was going to be for family who wanted to have two separate units. I did not understand it to be condos. Obviously, you know, he has the right to request that, but the concern for the Board of Health is if there's two separate owners and only one well and one septic, you run into the risk of issues if owners don't agree and something has to be repaired, or say the well runs dry, it becomes problematic for the town to order the owners. You'd have to order both owners, you have to bring both of them to court, should that need to be the case. I am aware of, I think, one other shared well in town, and we ran into that problem. Shared well, the well went dry, and it left two separate homes with a problem. So,
What would your recommendation be then, if this is something new? Yes?
I just, through the chair, can I ask Diane a question? It now comes, it goes from a septic system to what we consider a shared system. Does DEP have different guidelines for shared septic?
I think it goes to the local reg. The local reg is actually stronger.
Okay, because there is some shared regs in the DEP. I don't, okay, that was my question, because as a rental, we have many multifamilies in town that may be on private. As a rental with one owner, that's not a shared system. As a unit that has more than one dwelling with more than one owner, it puts it into a shared system, just as if it was two separate houses that shared a system. So it is, the terminology and definition of it is different.
Okay. So, sir, did you have something to say?
Yeah, that, the one Darlene was talking about, it did not state in the deed how that was supposed to be set up. In the deed of what these two are going to have, stipulate that each ownership of the well have equal share in expenses as to repair it if there's a problem. The same thing with the septic system. They're both equally responsible for that septic system. There is not just one responsible for the whole system. Now, it's just like any other condo deed. If you look up, as long as it doesn't have an association, the responsibility is for the owners of the building. If there's anything that happens to the roof, anything that happens to the siding, anything happens to the foundation, anything happens to the driveway. In the deed, it will stipulate just that. Any issues that pertains to two of them, they have to share the expense. Everything from the middle of the foundation to the right, as far as grass or any maintenance with that, is the sole responsibility of the owner who's on that side. But as far as the septic system is concerned and the water well is concerned, that's it. It's a shared expense. It cannot be, what do they call it? Contested. It is in the deed. Some expenses, as what Darlene was talking about, there is no written responsibility in their deeds. If that is so, then you're gonna have problems. But the way I'm gonna write these deeds up, there's not gonna be a problem.
It's not, to Mr. Bonneville's point, it's not something that I understood it to be condoized, two separate owners.
Okay.
I understood it to be a two-family for family members of him to be occupying both sides. The recommendation and I think intent of this regulation would be, the approval to allow one septic system. And the request that you have before you is for septic, but I would be remiss if I didn't say there's one well there in addition to. So it's one well, one septic serving one dwelling was what the intent of the approval, the original approval. The plan is several years old. As I stated earlier, I think the original approved plan is from 2010. For whatever reason, the system didn't get completed until now. But now, in order to issue the certificate of compliance, this was proposed as a 4-bedroom, single-family dwelling because the owner at this time wants to make it a 2-family, is what I understood. That would be, the approval would be contingent upon the this 2-family home to be under one owner to address the septic and well concerns. I know that Mr. Bonneville has also spoken to the building commissioner, and he is he's aware that in order to have a 2-family there, he would have to go through a separate process through zoning, so he's aware of that. But again, it's not my understanding that there were condos.
Okay. Would having the deeds present or a drafted deed or something like that, I'm looking for guidance, I don't.
I haven't seen any
I-
deeds that he's talking about. Perhaps he's going to prepare them. We could certainly send them to town council.
That
It's
would
not
be-
something
That would be
that,
my only, if his proposal of having contract language written up to legally share that burden specifically to each of the property owners, I would need to have legal counsel's input on that, so.
so I mean, that would have to go through, you couldn't consider the request tonight. You'd have to continue it, and the onus would be on the property owner to have, his attorney draft the deeds, and then we could present them to town council for advisement.
Okay.
It's not something that, that I'm familiar, that we've done recently.
Yes.
The meeting for the, what do they call it, special permit?
Zoning.
Through zoning?
For the building inspector, he did say that if you guys don't approve it, by the time that his next meeting, and his next meeting is the first of the month, right? That, Ray, it doesn't look good. If you guys don't approve it, then, you probably shouldn't move forward. So what I'm gonna say is this, is that if whatever you're requesting now, winter's coming. I put myself out on a limb here. I poured the concrete floor so that I wouldn't have to pour it and wheelbarrow it, so to speak, to a door or a window. So I did all of that. And I asked the building inspector if we can move this kind of quick, because if I don't, if this sits over the winter, and this unit is coming as a modular home, so all I have to do is just build a knee wall, which is, I can do that in 3 or 4 days. It's not a problem. but I can't have this sit over the winter now. Before I could, and this was only like Darlene said, 10 years, I think it's more like 12. It was a retirement type thing. I put the foundation in 1 year, and I did all this by hand, I did it all myself. Everything I got the permit from Darlene to install some of this, and some of the landscaping I've done. It's over 10 years that I've been working on this thing. And what I was gonna do is wait till I get about 60, and then I was gonna sell it, fix it all up and sell it. Well, circumstances have changed now. My children are out of college, and they need a place to stay. If it turned into a long-term project, now we're here and we came from a long way. So what I would like to ask the board is that kind of let's make sense of this. If it's a two-family, then what's the difference from going from a two-family to side-by-side condos? There's no determining or definition that would change it if they're called condos. Two-family condos. The only thing that I'm concerned about is if one of my kids decided that they can't stay there, that they're able to sell it and put it toward a single-family home. Not that the whole thing has to be sold, or there has to be one owner to the two-family. It's not commercial because we didn't go 3. So I would like to think that we can move forward with this as no stipulations. I'll put it in the deeds. You can inspect the deeds, and in 2 weeks I can go in front of the special board and get my permit.
I think that's what we're hinging on here, sir, is that you would put it in the deeds, and we would like to, I don't think we would be willing to approve something and just, I think we would need to see these deeds, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that we can expedite that through the work of the director and assistant and stuff too. I mean, what are your input on that?
So I think to Mr. Bonneville's point, it is a significant difference. You know, a two-family with one owner is responsible for the whole structure. When you go down the route of making them separate condos, you know, on one structure, I understand what Mr. Bonneville is saying. They're 2 condos, they're 2 separate owners. I know there are condos that have septic and well, but it would be something that the deed language would have to identify the responsibility of the one septic system and the one well that serves the dwelling. So it's not something that I can recommend approval at this point until the deed language is submitted, and we can certainly have town council look at that. It's not, deed language is not something that I write, so, you know, that would go to the lawyer that can review it and make sure that the responsibility is there to make sure that everybody's protected with one system and one well.
And I think you know, the building inspector will know. It's not that we, as the board, are saying unequivocally no, because we're not saying that at all. We're just saying that we want to see as Darlene said, the protection put into the deed for you to move forward. So it's not that when you go talk to the building inspector, you're going to say, oh, at the meeting tonight, the board said, no, you can't move forward. So that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that in order to make a decision, because I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, if we can get that language in there with protection that they have equal responsibility should there be a problem? Because that's where our problem lies, is that who's going to be responsible for the well and the septic system if something
Understandable.
goes wrong?
Sure.
So,
Sure.
From my understanding, one owner, one system could be allowed.
yeah.
Two owners, two systems. However, as you're mentioning, your proposal to have contract language in the deeds goes beyond, I think, our expertise.
Right.
We would need to have the town attorney look at that language to see if that would actually be something enforceable to take the burden off the town.
Sure.
Should something happen down the road.
Okay. I just don't want to waste everybody's time as far as going to the Board of Appeals, Board of Plan of Appeals, and having them say no, and I've done all this, shared all this expense to lose, you know, so whatever this board decides, I'd be willing to do to move forward as having a condos. I do have a lawyer, and I do have Burton Engineering, and they both said the same thing, that it can be done. And I did express that concern that I want both parties to be responsible for the septic and the well.
And I think what we're asking you, sir, is just to have that in writing, and
Yeah.
then we'll move forward, and you'll
Sure.
get exactly what you want. We're here to work for you, you know, and work with you, so
Yes.
let's just get that to us,
Sure.
and we can do that. So we'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing until such time as a deed is prepared, and
I'll make a motion then to continue this hearing pending receipt of the contract language, deed language, prepared by the petitioner and/or his attorney to be presented to town attorney for advisement.
is there a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
I'm
guys.
gonna
And,
see you tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll entertain a motion to close the hearing of the septic for 15 Sunrise Ave.
I'll make a motion to close the
Second.
hearing.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the next hearing that we have is for the tobacco sales on Route 20 Shell. This is continued from September 13th. I'd like to entertain a motion to open the hearing for September, for the tobacco sales on Route 20.
Open the hearing for, make a motion to open the hearing for the tobacco hearing on Route 20 Shell.
And is there a second?
I may need to recuse myself again. I recused myself in the original hearing,
Okay.
so
Sure.
we'll be
Okay.
right outside.
And I'll second your motion, and all those in favor of opening that hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Hearing is now open, and is there anyone who needs to, from Route 20 Shell that is in the audience, that needs to step forward and be heard? Seeing none and hearing none,
Thank you. So this, as you may recall, from 310 Washington Street, we discussed at the last meeting some tobacco compliance checks that were done in town. There were several establishments that had failed compliance check for a minor. And as you may recall, we did discuss the action that would move forward as a result of the violation of our town regulations. So this is being brought to you. I wanted to provide some good news for you. So after that meeting, the board had allowed movement forward to work with the Worcester Regional Tobacco Control Collaborative, which Eileen and I did. And we were able to actually visit each of the establishments, speak with the establishment owners to identify the process for which the enforcement would move forward. So, as you may recall, it was the violation, because it was a repeated violation, there was a license suspension for 1 week. Each of the establishments we met with. They all agreed to adhere to the 1-week suspension, and we went through the process of what they needed to do. Each one of them was on board with the process, and we worked with the agent through the collaborative to identify when the actual suspension would happen. And I think in your packets,
Yeah, there was a mention in the packet.
I have the notice.
Yeah.
So this actually occurred at each of the establishments, including 310 Washington Street. The owner agreed to the process, as well as Mass Discount Liquors and Route 12 Shell. So on Tuesday, October 9th, starting at 9 a.m. to Tuesday, October 16th, 9 a.m., the establishments had this notice posted. They removed all their tobacco products, and the suspension was in effect for 1 week. We had a check done by a collaborative. All the owners were cooperative with this, and it's now complete. So everything has been completed, and I wanted to bring that to your attention. The owner for 310 Washington Street agreed to comply, therefore the...
So his concerns were at the initial hearing were unfounded, apparently?
So we worked
Yeah.
with him. I think it was a matter of just clarifying.
Okay.
I think he had a concern about some of the products.
Products and tapes and
yeah.
a bunch of things.
So when we went out there, we
Yeah.
actually, we saw what he had for tapes, and the agent from the collaborative identified what to look for in the tapes. There was some questions about when it went back, how far the tapes went back, and then there was also a question about the specific product that he
Yes.
had, whether it was, I think it was a product for 99 cents or
Yes.
$1.49.
Sure.
Yeah.
So those items were clarified and worked out with him, and as I said, the enforcement did happen, and it is complete. I wanted to bring that update to the board.
Okay. All right, so there's no actions we need to take, so I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I think we should close the hearing.
So moved, okay. And I'll second that. All those in favor of closing the hearing for the tobacco sales? Aye. And the hearing is now closed. Next hearing is scheduled for, yes.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to also point out some good news. This just came through recently. There was a recent article for youth tobacco and nicotine prevention bill that was signed into law. So I just wanted to let you know, because it was kind of timely, that as you know, the tobacco sales went from 18 to 21. That's a state law that went into effect. And the legislation also adds vaping products to the smoke-free workplace law and prohibits the sale of tobacco products in healthcare institutions, including pharmacies. So these are things that you've probably already seen in place, but there was actually legislation. So I just thought it was kind of timely to just let you know.
Excellent, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Next hearing we have is the donation collection bin, continued from 9/13 of 2018. Steve, do you want to come back in? Entertain a motion to open the donation collection bin hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to open the donation collection bin hearing.
Second.
And it is seconded. All those in favor? Aye. And that hearing is now open.
Great, thank you. So from the last meeting, I presented the draft to you with the changes that the board had wanted to see. And I have also had the chance to send the proposed regulation to town council. They did do their review, and they made some minor changes. In your packets, I did include the new document. If you can see, and I'm sorry, I should have hit the colored the colored key, because mine are in red and yours are probably all in black and white. So just briefly, under definitions, they made a minor to be removed by the operator. So for donation collection bin, under the definition, When you go down to requirements and standards, they took out a line here, those responsible for the retrieval of the contents, just simply to the operator, just again to clarify it a little bit to the operator. Under the requirements and standards, under number 3, they added the word "and." So all of those items under E, 1 through 4, would be part of the requirement for the regulation. And then when you go down to K, I know, Steve, this was one of the things that you had brought up, and then we had some good discussion about how to clarify that we legally are doing the right thing. Under K, there shall be no more than 3 donation collection bins allowed. And instead of per property address, because I know we kind of went back and forth, they want to see the word parcel as defined by the assessor in the town of Auburn. So that becomes more legally sound way to present it. So hopefully that helps bring some comfort to you. Under number 6, Roman numerals number 6, just some wording for clarifying permit application and permitting. And then under C, they clarified that payment, which is set in accordance with the Town of Auburn regulation, the fee schedule shall be made at the time the application is submitted. That's consistent with all of our applications, that somebody pays the fee. And then moving on to F, they again just cleaned that up so that the word operator, not all the rest of it, shall be jointly and severably liable for each violation thereof and for payment of the fine assessed. So that's under the enforcement part of it. Those just, again, just minor changes. And then I know we were trying to move this forward to have the regulation in place if the board so chooses to approve it. And then I originally had 90 days of enactment of the regulation. I think we were trying to work it to the end of the year, so starting January 1st. I think I counted it out, and it's like 70 days from now. But I think with the holidays and the beginning of the year, you know, I'm comfortable with keeping the 90 days. We will be making contact with all of the operators of these donation bins, and it just kind of gives them a little bit leeway, a couple weeks into January, which I don't think is a big deal. You know, just give them, you know, through the holidays, people aren't really probably paying attention to this, and because it's a new regulation, I think it kind of helps the people just with a couple more weeks. So I think the language is fine. Town council didn't have any problem with the 90 days, so if you're comfortable with it, we can keep it as 90. Sure. Just knowing that it's not going to start January 1st, but for the initial part of it,
Sure.
we would start a couple weeks into January.
Any questions from the board, concerns? I think it looks well. Looks good. And I know I don't have any concerns after reading it. Seems like it fits in with the concerns we had over the last couple meetings and stuff. So if there are no concerns or anything, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion, Steve?
Second.
And all those in favor of approving the public donation collection bin regulations, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it is a vote.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so we'll entertain a motion to close the hearing for Houston.
I'll make a motion to close the donation
Second
collection
that.
bin here.
And all those in favor? Aye. So the next hearing that we have is the nuisance dog hearing for 14 Preston Ave. I'm going to entertain a motion to open that hearing.
So move.
And
I'll make
is
a
there a
motion.
second?
Second here.
And all those in favor of opening the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. So the purpose of this hearing is for the board to hear evidence concerning Barnabas and Ian, owned by Mr. Robert Davis of 14 Preston Ave, to be in violation of a nuisance dog order, and to make a determination as to what action to take, if any, regarding the dog or dogs involved. We will hear representatives from the town as well as the owner. Also hear from residents of the town or the witnesses involved, if any. The board will then give the dog owner the opportunity to speak if he or if you choose. The board will then continue or close the hearing, make a decision as what should be done in the case, and issue a order accordingly. Town witnesses are present, and can I signify by raising your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Okay. And is there any other witnesses in the audience that are going to be speaking in regards to this? You folks. And anyone else?
I'm the dog owner.
Okay, so you're going to be speaking then?
It depends on what I get.
Okay, so we'll need to swear you in then. And can you all raise your hand as well, and you all swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? You do? Excellent. Okay, so you've all been sworn. And so this hearing is now opened, and Ms. Contois.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
So we brought this forward to the Board of Health regarding complaints that we received regarding potential violations of the nuisance dog order that was issued back on April 5th, 2018 for Barnabas and Ian. They're two Rottweiler dogs owned at 14 Preston Ave by Mr. Davis. Originally back in April, the order that was placed on Mr. Davis was that if the dogs were going to be outside unattended in the yard, they had to be confined by a secured kennel. Mr. Davis did comply with that order by building the kennel. He does have two separate areas for both of the dogs, Ian and Barnabas. And there was additionally in the letter that was sent out, but not directly placed in the order that was issued, that if the dogs were going to be outside attended with the owner, so if the owner or somebody that the owner gave permission to have the dogs could be outside tethered or on a lead. However, on October 11th and October 12th, we did receive two separate complaints from residents in the area that at least one of the dogs was loose. We received information that it sounded like the dog was potentially tethered outside on the property and potentially broke the tether. We did, in your packet, there is a picture that a resident from the neighborhood included of the dog loose off of 14 Preston Ave, off of its own property. So again, we're bringing it forward to you. The dogs have already been deemed a nuisance in the town, so now we're looking at a violation of the order that was placed back in April.
Okay.
If I may?
Sure.
Through the chair. So back in April, when we went through this this hearing, it was explained and discussed at length that the recommendations and the choices that the board had before them, the board, as you may recall, considered many different things and decided on these items that Ms. Contois identified. When there's a violation of the order in accordance with Mass General Law, the dog, this is identified in the order that was provided to the owner, the dog shall be subject to seizure and impoundment by a law enforcement or animal control officer. In violation of an order may result in the prohibition of the owner from licensing a dog within the Commonwealth for 5 years. So we have received notification on two separate dates for the dogs being in violation of the order.
Just to clarify, the dog was only in violation on October 11th, but it was reported on separately on October 11th, and then an additional resident in the neighborhood reported it for the previous day on October 12th. So they were reporting the same incident, just on different days.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
And do you have any recommendations?
I do have some recommendations based on the information that we received from the residents explaining the same situation, offering photographic evidence of the dogs being loose. I would recommend amending the current order to include more strict conditions for the owner. in regards to the keeping of the dogs.
And can we hear what those are?
Sure. So in the existing order, the dogs, when they're unattended outside, they would still be allowed to be housed in the outdoor kennel. The kennel, as far as we're aware, has proven to be a secured place to keep the dogs when the owners aren't present. But I would also like to amend the order to add that while the dogs are being attended to outside, so while there is an owner out there or a person that has expressed permission to have the dogs in their control, the dogs would have to be restrained by a leash or lead not exceeding 6 feet in length. So that's also, that wording, the 6 feet in length, is consistent with our nuisance bylaws in town for keeping a dog restrained on leash. So this would not allow for the dogs to be tethered to any stationary object in the yard, so not tied on like a dog run to anything on the property. I would also recommend that both dogs, Barnabas and Ian, be permanently identified by the implantation of and registration of a microchip, and that the microchips be done, placed at a veterinary clinic within 30 days of the order, and that proof of microchipping and registration would be provided to animal control. Additionally, that the owner would cause Barnabas and Ian to be altered or neutered, in this case for both the dogs are males, by a licensed veterinarian, so that the dog shall not be reproductively intact unless the owner provides evidence that a veterinarian is in the opinion that the dogs would be unfit for alterations because of a medical condition. The dogs shall be altered within 60 days of the order and provide proof by certification of surgery by a licensed veterinarian to animal control. And also that the owner shall provide proof of training services with a CCPDT, which stands for Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. So by a certified dog trainer, or certified behaviorist, or a veterinary behaviorist within 60 days of the order, and that the owner shall provide proof of obtained services in writing to animal control. And lastly, I would recommend that to stay consistent with Mass General Law, to include in the written order that if the owner is found to be in violation of the order issued by the Board of Health, that Barnabas and Ian shall be subject to seizure by police or animal control.
Those are recommendations in addition to the existing order
Correct.
that we have before us this evening. Thank you. Anyone else from the town have anything to say? No? Anyone from the audience wishing to be heard? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm at 21 Elmwood Street,
Yes.
and
I'm sorry?
I'm
Oh, your name, sir?
Jeremy Harris.
Sure.
I'm the one that took pictures of his dog in my yard.
Okay.
I went to go outside out of my basement. I opened the door, I turned around to grab a screwdriver, and I turned back around, and his dog was right at my screen door. And I was far enough away where I couldn't close my door, and the dog started barking viciously. I mean, I don't know if you ever had that done to you, but it'll scare the crap out of you, you know, to say the least. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Even if the dog has a chip, yeah, I tracked it. Now it's in my yard and attacks me, you know? Yeah, it has a chip, so that doesn't make a difference. It got out once, and that's one too many times. He's had his chance trying to be polite about things. I mean, that's just too much. I mean, dogs shouldn't be allowed out, period.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to be heard?
Victor Bowen, I live at 25 Elmwood Street. One of the questions I had, now when they're outside in the pen, they can be unattended as long as they're in the pen? Because I know he'll put them in the pen and they're in there all day by themselves. So I'm just curious, that's...
Sure. Through the chair, the existing order, that is how it's written, that the dogs can be outside unattended, so the owner does not have to be present in the yard when the dogs are in the secured kennel.
Okay.
Right now, the way our bylaws and Mass General laws are written, it does allow for the dogs to be outside in a secured kennel, as long as they have protection from the elements through a dog house.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to be heard? Yes, sir.
Matt Walsh, 44 Field Street. Now, you guys are talking this is a nuisance dog. This dog is vicious. It will kill you. Don't even deny that. And this dog's absolutely, you guys will attest to it, I'm telling you.
I witnessed
He's
it.
walking up, I had him up my street last spring, and I even talked to him. I'm in my car, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm like, this dog doesn't belong in this neighborhood. I go, can I come out and pet your dog? He goes, no. He goes, I treat him not like people. This is what he said. He attacked the neighbor's dog. Have you guys even seen the dog? Have you walked within 5 feet of the dog? It is vicious to 2 of them. He can't even control him. He has him on a chain. You can't even control him in a walk. And you know that.
Barely.
I took him to Petco the other
Okay,
night.
folks,
I'm just
gentlemen,
telling you.
right,
These
you can
things-
address through the
Okay,
chair,
I'll-
okay? We're
I'm
not
just
gonna
telling you,
talk to
it's
each other,
not-
you'll
it's not a-
address...
it's not a
Oh, sir, one
nuisance.
second. You're going to be able to be heard.
Yep.
You will address through myself,
You got it.
and we will hear it,
Yep.
okay? To maintain order in this hearing.
Thanks,
So
Jeff.
you can continue.
The dog's not a nuisance. It's vicious. It's dangerous, and it shouldn't be in the neighborhood. That's all I'm telling you guys. If you guys lived in a neighborhood and seen these dogs, I'm just telling you. I'm glad my kids are older. I'm glad I don't have young kids. I'm telling you, this dog got loose in my neighborhood. I'm telling you, it will kill you.
Okay.
They're vicious. Absolutely vicious. And you can't control them.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Al Rafferty. I just have one question. Why the recommendation to have the dogs neutered?
Sure. Ms. Contois?
Sure. It has been proven through veterinary medicine that neutering a dog lowers its testosterone levels, which can lower aggression. It might not, if these dogs are aggressive, it might not completely fix the problem, but it would lower the testosterone, the testosterone does aid in aggression. And also, if the dogs are getting loose to roam the neighborhood, if they're not neutered, they could be doing that in search of a female dog, so hopefully that would reduce the dog's desire to actually leave the property as well.
Okay. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
So even if the dogs are chipped and everything, what if they get out again?
Then the way I understand this is that they'll be obtained by animal control and law enforcement, brought to the kennel. Correct? Am I correct in that?
Yep, through the chair, if I could just explain, a microchip, it doesn't work as a GPS, so we wouldn't be able to follow the dog where it goes. It's just a form of permanent identification, so if the dogs are loose and not wearing a collar or not wearing tags, we would be able to scan the dogs for a microchip, an ID number would pop up, and we could say with certainty that it is in fact the dog that we may think it is. And also through the chair,
Yes.
one other explanation, the definitions of nuisance dogs and dangerous dogs does kind of come into play with this, with some of the concerns that the residents are bringing up. A dog can't be deemed a dangerous dog solely on barking or growling. I certainly understand the concerns that people in the neighborhood might have if they're walking by the property and the dogs are barking and or growling at them. But in accordance with Mass General Law, you can't deem a dog dangerous just because of the barking and growling.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Yes, sir.
So the dog at my door isn't vicious. The dog was at my door, my screen door. I could have ran through the thing. I mean, it's like, that's crazy. The dog shouldn't have even been on my property, first off. Second, it was right at my screen door. What am I supposed to do?
And through the chair,
Yes.
we are here because of the violation of the current nuisance dog order that the dogs were off of the property. So your concerns are being addressed through this hearing.
With further restraining, as well as, I mean, as far as the restraining goes, as far, bringing that to 6 feet, it must be in possession and restrained a leash not exceeding that by the dog or the dog's keeper, anytime that they're outside of that pen.
Here's the thing though, the dog's in the pen. If I'm just sitting in my yard, dog starts barking, and it's not just like one bark. It goes on and on. If I'm mowing my lawn, it goes on and on. I can't even go near my shed without the dog jumping off the side of the fence.
And I believe if I heard Ms. Contois, and I can empathize with your concern, hold on, is that we can't determine a dangerous dog, just on those allegations, am I correct?
I'm not saying dangerous, I'm saying inside the cage, it's a nuisance with it barking like that. Now, if I had an air horn and every time the dog started barking, I started honking the air horn, I'd get the cops called on me, I'm sure.
And I'm sure that's not, we've already determined the dog's to be a nuisance dog.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right.
But now he just leaves them outside all day, most of the time unattended. And at the first meeting, he said that it was going to be covered so they couldn't see out. And it's not covered, it's all open fence. So they see me in my kitchen window, in my house. They're barking because they see me in my kitchen. You know? He said there was going to be a closed-in pen, sides all closed up, dogs couldn't see out, and it's all open.
And
That's
again,
what he said at the last meeting.
okay, again, I mean, we've determined them to be nuisance dogs, and again, for the definitions come into play here, we can't deem them just dangerous because of their actions of barking and that type of thing. I mean, we're bound by those. You know, if you have other evidence to the contrary, I'm sure we would certainly hear that. However, we're at, you know, I believe that we hear you. We've already deemed them nuisance dogs. We're here because he's in violation of the order, because they had gotten out, and we have recommendations to go forward with that.
And through the chair, if I can add to that, we do have nuisance barking regulations in town as well, where anything over 15 minutes of consecutive barking is considered a violation of our bylaws. That falls under the scope of the nuisance dog bylaws, which does have citations involved in it. I have received complaints about the dogs barking in the kennels. It's not something that I've personally been able to witness. I have gone out to see if I could verify personally the dogs barking, but obviously residents in the neighborhood are going to be experiencing it much more frequently than I can go out and check for. But the board certainly could add it into any potential amendments, potentially covering several sides of the kennels. If there's an issue with a specific property where the dogs are able to see into a home and that's setting off barking, maybe covering that side of the kennel to prevent that.
That's good.
Anyone else in the audience need to be heard? Hearing and seeing none. I did have a question in regards to were there were there any fines ever levied against the owner for these dogs, and were those fines paid?
We do currently actually have 3 outstanding citations for that were issued for Barnabas and Ian not being licensed and for them being unvaccinated. They have since been licensed and vaccinated, but at the time that those citations were issued, those hadn't been fulfilled. So at this point, those are outstanding citations that have not been paid by the owner.
And what's that dollar amount?
That totals $125.
How long has that been outstanding?
I don't have the dates in front of me, but it was prior to the last hearing that we had, so prior to April.
Oh.
Any of the board members have any other questions? And I guess therefore I would entertain a motion in regards to find the owner in violation of the nuisance dog regulation as set forth on May 9th, and then go with the recommendations as set forth by Ms. Contois, written in the new order dated October 25th, 2018.
Can we also do an amendment to have the signs covered to address some of the barking issues? Add that to it?
Is that possible to, there was a question in regards to fully enclosing this pen?
Or at least covering the pens to address some of that.
That certainly is within the board's right if you want to amend any of the recommendations. From what I've seen from the kennels, they're positioned next to the property, so one one of the 4 sides is facing that home, the home of 14 Preston Ave. So if the board or the residents are concerned with the dogs seeing out of all the sides, can still potentially leave the side facing their own home uncovered so the dogs aren't completely closed in.
Yeah.
Okay. So, with the motion, I'll continue on in regards to all of the recommendations as written in this new order written by Ms. Contois in regards to enclosing the pen on 3 sides, being allowed to leave the Preston Street side open, and also to pay the fees of $125 within 1 week of this hearing. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion's in effect, and the order is in place. Okay. Now that the order is in place, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second
All
motion.
those in favor of closing the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And I don't get to say anything in my defense?
You were, sir. I asked multiple times.
Excuse me?
I asked multiple times. I asked if anyone else in the audience would like to be heard.
I thought you were talking to them.
I was looking at the audience. You're seated in the audience.
I haven't even seen this picture you're talking about. Listen, I'm not disagreeing with your findings, all right, other than one thing, and that's the neutering of the dogs, because I don't believe that neutering the dogs is going to make any difference, okay? It's just my personal view, all right, and I've raised dogs for a long time. I don't want to have to drag this through the mud and appeal it and everything else, because I'm trying to work with you people. I've complied with all of your orders, okay? I've spent a lot of time training these dogs, and I'm not even aware that the dog was off the leash, okay? I haven't even seen a picture.
Unfortunately, sir, the hearing is now closed, and you had the opportunity to speak at multiple occasions. I'm sorry you missed those, but the order is in effect, been found in violation.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, moving on. Director's items. Actually, a discussion on the Board of Health fee schedule is next. I guess, I mean, I know we had talked about this could be lengthy. Is there anything that, as far as to expedite this, or is there?
Oh, sure. So this is actually just to introduce you to our good work of, I want to praise Paula for taking the time. This has been something that has been in the works for the past year. So I want to personally thank her. She has contacted several towns in the area for their fee schedules, and then she put it into this fabulous spreadsheet. So this was just to let you know, I think when the last time we talked about it, we were going to try to get other towns and kind of put them in something that we could follow. At the next meeting, if the board allows, we could do some recommendations of some of the fees that we think may be in line to, look at raising or, or changing. Not necessarily raising it everyone, but maybe consolidating or putting some things where it makes a little bit easier sense. So this was just an introduction to you to let you know that Paula has put this together, and we will, come to a future meeting to be able to look at the fee schedule.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Oops, I'm sorry.
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Overall, when was the last time the schedule was updated?
It has
increased.
been, I think it was 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Excuse me. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's been a good many years. So I think it's 14.
2012. It was 12.
Maybe some.
All right.
Yeah.
And perhaps
Between 12 and 14.
some or all of the fees may have been changed? back that last time?
I think there was a comprehensive fee update
Okay.
at that point. I don't, I'm sure we could probably find the previous fee schedule that was done before then, but
Okay.
it took a while. I recall the previous director doing kind of the same thing,
Right.
spending a lot of time to get the fee schedule. Honestly, the Board of Health fee schedule has not been updated a lot.
I'm just, and it's good that this discussion is coming up, because
Yeah.
as a state resident, a town resident, when fees don't move for 5-10 years, and then bang, there's substantial increases,
Right.
it really hurts, so.
Yeah. And
to
that's,
look at it
yeah,
as
that's
a-
not what we're looking to do, you know?
No, but still, we don't want to let them sit idle for
Yeah.
5-10 years.
Absolutely, yep.
Without doing anything.
In this also, now that, now that we've had, staff working together on items, we've already done it, I think, for several of the food fees, we've incorporated some into others so that they don't have to pay.
Right.
You know what I mean? To make it easier, to
Yeah.
cut down on the applications, to make the process a little bit easier. So it's something that we want to make it more user-friendly
Yeah.
and consistent with the amount of time that we spend on a certain item,
Right.
to make sure that the fee is reflecting the time that we're spending on it.
I'm kind of curious too, as far as people that take out annual permits, and they're used to paying these fees.
Right.
Would they rather just see a flat fee for X period of time and then a substantial increase, or slow incremental increases over that same time period?
Yeah.
Not every year, but maybe every other year. I just don't have a feeling for how folks that are subject to paying these fees would look at it.
I mean, one of the biggest, I guess one of the biggest fees that we deal with revolve around like the food establishments, because they're obviously, anything that we have to renew annually.
Right.
Those are typically the ones that, we're dealing with
Yeah.
almost on a regular basis, because
Right,
we have
right.
the annual renewals, and then we also have new establishments that are
Yeah.
opening all the time, and the board has given a lot of consideration to be business-friendly as well. So if somebody is opening, say, the last week in November, I know I brought this
Right.
to, I can't remember the establishment, but I know I brought this to you. If they're opening, say, I don't know, November 25th, you usually give them the month and let them pay one
Yeah,
fee, so that
right.
that's good for a year and a month.
Yeah.
So I
And-
mean, there's definitely a lot of leeway that the board
Right.
has shown business.
Recurring things like our restaurants and things like that, that would be really who I'd be interested in getting their opinion from. Would as a business operator, would they prefer to have small increases every couple of years, or steady rate, and then, a large increase after a certain time period? Our one-time fees, septics and wells and things like that, unless you're tradesmen that are constantly doing it, but just
Right.
keep your ears open.
Absolutely.
think.
I mean, that's something we can definitely
Yeah,
also
and
poll some business
Also,
owners.
it's a public hearing.
Yeah.
We raise our fees, and
Yeah,
so it's published for an
Right.
open hearing for people to come.
right.
Those that are possibly maybe have some feedback for us, or, kind of want to be involved in the process.
Right.
Have the opportunity to
Right.
come to the open hearing. It is published a couple times before the hearing.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work. I know,
Yeah,
I
very
remember,
good.
I remember that was one of my
It looks
first meetings,
impressive.
and it was... Could you maybe alphabetize that? No, I'm just kidding. All right, moving on.
to try to shorten it up.
Yeah, director's items, any correspondence?
I think I have in your packet, probably just some of the things that we've been working on. But one, I did want to just let you know, we are working with the Attorney General's office on some vacant property items. And we've had their help kind of moving through the process to try to rectify some vacant housing issues. I provided an update to you on the Worcester Regional Tobacco Control Collaborative already. The solid waste, the update that I wanted to let you know, I'm very excited about this. The DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, has a new initiative called Recycle Smart, and hopefully you'll start seeing some of the infographics and seeing, I believe it was in the Auburn News last week, and hopefully in one of the electronic papers, the Auburn Daily, I think, is coming out with a story as well. We're trying to get the word out for this Recycle Smart initiative. It's basically a statewide campaign to bring recycling back to basics. So they have 4 main categories that they break it down to, and basically just trying to give the same information to everybody statewide. Different municipalities sometimes do things a little bit differently, and they may have specific things that you do in one town that you don't do in another. This initiative tries to bring some unity and making it a universal kind of recycling, what goes in the toter and what doesn't. And the reason for this is, I think you've probably seen it over the past year, it's been just about a year or so, a little bit more, that contamination has become a huge, huge issue in recycling. So the recycling product, if it becomes contaminated, they really kind of have to treat it as trash. And then, as you know, we pay per ton for trash. So keeping that recycling product as clean as possible, making sure, if you have drink containers, food containers, that you empty them or rinse them. You don't have to put them through the dishwasher, but you have to rinse out the yogurt, you have to rinse out the tomato sauce, you have to make sure you don't throw a bottle of, a full bottle of Gatorade or a half a bottle, into the recycling bin, because it contaminates stuff like paper and cardboard. And then that contaminated product you have to treat as trash. So this Recycle initiative is addressing that. It's really kind of a very cool campaign. I'm very excited about it, and you'll start to see the charts go around. And if you can catch a copy of the Auburn News from last week. And then yard waste dates. We have yard waste dates beginning, I have to check. Yeah, I have to check myself. Yeah, today's the 25th, so it starts this week. We have 4 consecutive Saturdays, which is consistent with what we've done in the past. Leaves are starting to come down, but we will have this for the people that are on the municipal contracts. Customers can put their leaves out in the paper bags or open containers. The message is not to use the toter, so do not use your trash or recycling toter for yard waste. That is definitely not allowed. And we really ask for people's cooperation. We're very fortunate to have this service, so we want to make sure that people understand how they have to put the yard waste out. If they have any questions at all, they can call the Board of Health. We're happy to talk to people about that. Central Mass Mosquito Control, we finally had our first frost, so we're happy about that. I believe the total for people that had West Nile this year was, I think, a record total, like 44 people. So very serious statistic, and something that we dealt with a lot, having to do spraying in response to areas that had positive mosquitoes. The emergency preparedness, I'm happy to tell you we did a drill at our flu clinic that happened on Tuesday. So we have had two clinics so far. We did a employee flu clinic to get our town employees vaccinated, to hopefully keep them healthy and free from the flu. That vaccinating our workforce also helps continuity of government and making sure that we don't have mass amounts of people go down with the flu. We've done that flu clinic, and we've also done the senior flu clinic. We had a drill where we had a member of the regional the regional emergency preparedness coalition came in to evaluate our setup, and we did pass. Eileen, did you want to mention something to the board?
Yeah, we actually did get notification that we passed and they accepted our EDS drill.
Congratulations.
And the next part, it's a 3-part series this year. The next part is going to be the 24/7 call down. I don't know if you were here, Eric, for the last one, but it was a little confusing because we didn't notify you, so I want to tell you ahead of time. You're on our 24/7 call down list if there were to be an emergency. Darlene and I are on it as well. If there was an emergency, they would call you and we would have 24 hours to assemble. So in order to meet that requirement, they've suggested we do it at a board meeting. So on the date that we give them for our next board meeting, you will all receive a call at some time, probably in the morning. Our 24-hour assembly would be at our board meeting. And as long as we signed you in and documented it in the minutes that you attended that board meeting, then it would suffice for us. So naturally, we'd have to pick when the next board meeting is going to be and try to find out if it's a board meeting we're going to have all 3 at, and we can move forward with that. And the final piece for this year would be to identify our EDS sites and have a surprise call to them, just to kind of see how long it would take them to clear the site and get it ready. They wouldn't physically be doing anything. It would be a phone conversation. If it's an available site, we have an emergency, can we use it? That'll be done probably sometime later in the year, maybe spring. And that's all we have to do for EDS sites for this year.
Great. Excellent.
Eileen did a great job getting, so we have to attend these meetings to get these information. These are all requirements that come down from the federal government to the state government and then to the local boards of health. And she has done a great job staying apprised of all the requirements. There's a lot of details that you have to follow, and I'm happy to say that we're meeting those requirements. So it helps.
Excellent. Anything further?
I don't think so. Oh, just the notification, our last flu clinic that we have scheduled is Vote and Vax. So I'm excited about this. This is like always just a fun clinic. So on election day, we have a flu clinic scheduled. It's going to be at the high school, Auburn High School, and that's going to be on Tuesday, November 6th, so election day. When you come in the back entrance, so people come in the back and you go straight to go into the gym to vote. If you were to take a left and just go straight down the hallway, we have a whole setup of where we'll have the nurses administering flu shots. It's awesome. We've done it a couple of times, and I have to say, it's like a really good feel-good moment because you hear so many people say, "Oh, this is so convenient," you know. And I think making it easy for people to get that and to protect their health kind of makes it like a really nice thing. So this is something that we'll have the Vote and Vax on November 6th at the Auburn High School, and we're going to be starting at 4 o'clock. So we catch everybody usually after when they're getting out of work. So we'll go 4 to whenever we run out of vaccine. So,
Excellent.
yeah. And I don't think I have anything else. I don't have any report from the nurse
Okay, but there may have been
to
some.
provide.
Okay.
And
Well, we have lots going on in the food sector, so We have several new establishments that will be opening. The mall actually has 3. We have all approved floor plans. 2 are still in the build-out stage, but Subway hopefully will be open by midweek of next week, so they're going to make it for the holiday season. They're going to be located in the original spot that Subway was a couple years ago in the food court area. So they retrofitted, looks beautiful, the new spot there, and are just doing their final training and getting ready to open. The other 2 places are Master Walk had closed down. We have an establishment called Captain Louis going in there, and they're kind of like a fried seafood type. They have some other forms of food, but seafood seem to be prevalent in their menu. Their floor plan's approved, and now they're going to work towards their build-out. And the next one is across from there. There was a hamburger place. It went by several names. They've been closed for about a year and a half. Stewart's Old Fashioned Hamburger is going in there. We don't have any local around here, but they're pretty popular out in the Springfield area. And, you know, they're semi-fast food hamburger place. Again, floor plan's been approved by both Board of Health and Building, and they're in their build-out. They want to be in by the holiday season, so they're a little more active. And the next one, Biscotti Bakery, I think I had mentioned that at a previous meeting, but they're going in where Gabrelli and Insurance is, 744 Southbridge, in a little spot there. They're nearing their pre-operation inspection, so they've been through their build-out and they're putting their final equipment in, so they'll be opening. So we'll have 4 within November and December opening. And then it's a temporary event season, and Jordan isn't here tonight, but she has been out on temporary events like crazy. I think she's had 9 in the past 2 weeks. So we've had the big ones for us, the Fall Festival, which is come and gone, and we're gearing up for the Holiday Festival at the high school. But there are 5Ks all around town. They all serve food now. The Haunted Hayride is open and they're serving food. So all the little events that have any type of food, we attend. And the school is doing all of their class fundraisers after school hours, which, you know, just has added on to our plate for Jordan to go out and make sure all the students and their advisors get the proper education to serve food. So between her regular inspection, she's been very busy. And the only final thing is we're nearing the end of our second quarter. So we have 163 establishments which require 2 and sometimes 3 inspections a year. We reviewed it today for the meeting, and we're at about 35 left to do between now and December. If we do get the 35 done, and we feel very hopeful we will, even with all of the other things on our plate, we would definitely be up between 95 and 100%. So Jordan's, you know, out there and doing everything she can. She's not been here a year, and she's really coming up to speed. So it definitely was a number we needed to get up, and I really, really feel good about our department because we worked really hard at it, and we are reaching the numbers that the state requires. So we will be happy to present that report to you and to the state with the numbers that
That's phenomenal.
it is. And you know, the community as a whole gets the level of service we can give in our inspections gives them the opportunity to receive the education. And we have a new food code. The state has adopted the 2013 food code, so it's a learning curve for us as inspectors, but also for all the establishments that now need to follow it and wonder why after all these years there's going to be a change. So we're starting to attend classes. We've been going through, we had the opportunity to have input in these changes and attend many meetings, and now that it's here, it'll be a really heavy year for us to go through and make sure that all these establishments receive the proper education and help from us to, you know, actually be able to achieve the new requirements that the reg put out. The state reg changed as well for many things and adopted these regs, so.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I think now we're at the time to schedule the next meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're looking at November.
Yeah, so typically, usually we will try to do one meeting when we get closer to the holidays. I don't know if that's something that you would still like to look at. But I know, like, so November has, we normally meet the second and the fourth Mondays, or somewhere around there, according to the schedule, and Paula can still send out, you know, the notification to you to see like what works. But I just wanted to highlight the 12th is it's a recognized holiday for Veterans Day. So Veterans Day is the 11th. They recognize it on the 12th, so that's a holiday. And then I think Thanksgiving's early this year. I think it's the 22nd. So, you know, we want to probably stay away from that. Tends to be a busy week for people. So, again, we can have Paula send something out to see what works for you, but I just wanted to at least highlight those two because it seems like as soon as the holidays start coming, it's like they start coming.
Right.
Does anybody have any ideas about dates, like maybe earlier in November?
19th and 26th would be out for me.
Okay.
Those are the last 2 Mondays. Those last 2 weeks are really tough for me.
How about the beginning part of November? I mean, I know it would be...
It's only in a week, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Wednesday. Not that I like Wednesdays, but
I mean, the 21st would be kind of tough because that's the day before
yeah,
Thanksgiving.
no, but the 28th works for me.
We could do the 28th, and that's kind of...
That's weird.
And it doesn't work for me.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
maybe we just kind of send out some
Yeah, okay.
some stuff, and I think that by the yeah.
Does it help if you guys just send me your availability when you get your schedules? I know that.
I mean, I have mine now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so I mean, it's if you send it out, I can always just send you what works. Okay, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's easier
Monday
for
the
us
5th?
to see your schedules.
Yeah.
If we pick dates and send them out, then we have to kind of go through, you can, you can't, you. But if you send us your availability,
Slap it
we
out there.
find the first one that you all put,
Okay,
and we,
Yeah, that's what kind of.
Okay.
and we match it.
all right.
All right, so I'll do that.
Especially for November and December when everyone has their own.
All right.
This.
And I mean, we don't have to stay on Monday, you know, I mean, we could go, it just goes, like, when you, so what happens is like a whole coordination thing. You send us the dates that you're available, and then we try to narrow it down, okay, so when can we get a majority? And then Paula has to see if the room is available.
Yeah, Mondays the rooms are always
Like,
available, but
right.
other days we have to ask.
Like, we have a standing, so our room is always available on the 2nd and the 4th at this time for us, but I know that doesn't always meet
Right.
your schedule. But we know we have it at least on this time. So we'll try that. We'll have her connect, and then you can send the schedule back, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right?
Excellent.
Do you have any other questions for me?
I don't. Anyone from the board? No? All right. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the meeting.
I make a motion to close the meeting?
Second. And all those in favor of closing the meeting?
Aye.
Aye. All right, meeting is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.